Why we go into factoring so much is we can solve quadratic equations by factoring, and that's what this section's about. So a quadratic equation in X is an equation that can be written in standard form, where A, B, C are real numbers and A cannot equal 0. If A were 0, then it would go back to a linear equation, so you have to have an x squared for it to be a quadratic. It's also called a second degree because of that right there, polynomial equation in X. So the zero product principle, if you've got a factor A times a factor B and it equals 0, then either A is equal to 0 or B is equal to 0, or they both could be 0. So, using the zero product principle, solve the equation. This is already factored. If it's already factored with 0 on this side, don't remultiply and then factor it, because you'll get right back where you were. So see if a problem is factored or not. So set them individually equal to 0. So either one of those answers would make the original equation true. So steps to follow. By factoring, write in standard form. That means you've got to have it equal to 0. It needs to be in, remember, descending order. Factor, like we have been doing. And once you factor, split your factors up, set them individually equal to 0, and you solve for x. To check, you substitute it back in. And I'll do some checking here. I'll show you how. So this is already in correct form. It's a trinomial, so I'm going to 2 times -4 is a -8. That's the pairing I need, because when added will give me my 7. So let's go break up the middle. So what I'm doing is step 2 right now, because step 1 was already completed. So keep focusing on this side until you have it factored. The only time you set them equal to 0 is if you have an equation right at the very beginning of the problem. If your directions is to just factor, then that would be as far as I go. But if I have it equal to 0, then I've got to go and set my factors individually equal to 0. So I'm saying those two are my answers. Alright, let me get my calculator. See if I can move this so you can see and I can keep that glare off one way or the other. Alright, so I'm going to store 1/2. So go 1 divided by 2. Right next to your on key, that is your store key, and when I press it, I'm about to press it, I get a little arrow, and that means I'm going to be storing it. I'm going to store it in for X. You have to press enter to tell the calculator that that is what you want. Alright, now I'm going to type the original in. So I've got 2x squared plus 7x minus 4. And if it comes out to be 0, then I have the correct answer. But I've got 2 answers. So now I'm going to store -4. I only type the equation in once. If you will do, and you need 2 fingers, second enter, it scrolls back. So I'm back to my equation, press enter, and that should come up to be 0 as well. So I know that these two, both of these, are correct. Alright, example 3, not in correct form. I need to subtract 2x from both sides. It's in standard form. I've got it equal to 0. I've got a binomial, but first thing I've got to do is factor out an x. So that's all the factoring I can do. I set my factors. X is a factor, so I've already got an answer. So those are my answers. Okay? So try storing. If you have issues with storing, let me know. This one, not in correct form. I've got to move everything over. Perfect square here, perfect square here. Let's try. If you FOIL that, it does work. But now, since both of these are the same, you only have to set one equal to 0. It's just called a double root. So that's it for that one. This one, not in correct form. Move that over. You have to have 0 on one side. I prefer the right. I've got two terms. That's a perfect square. That's a perfect square. So 2 parentheses, a plus and a minus. Square root. Square root. It is factored. Let's set them individually equal to 0. So either one of those will make my statement true. Some of you might just, instead of storing that in, go 9 parentheses and put these answers in parentheses and square. That's another way to check, but it does take a little bit longer. So you need to try and store. You really do. Let's look at this last example for this particular video. This is not in correct form in any way, fashion, or form. No, you cannot go x equals 16 and x minus 6 equals 16. You have to have 0 here. So first thing, we've got to get it in the correct form, in standard form. So let me distribute the x. And then move the 16 over. Now that's a perfect square, and that one is. But if you'll notice, I've got a 6. So if I had 4x and 4x, it won't give me that. So this is a trinomial that I need to write down my possibilities. I think that's the pair I need, except my signs need to be opposite. But this is one of the nice kind. So that's what I need, and we can try this. If we put 8 here and 8 here, that would be, inside would be a 2. 8 times 2 does give me 16. Well, let's try a negative 2. A negative 2 here, and here that would give me a negative 8. So a negative 2 times negative 8 is a positive 16. So both of those check. So try some of these. The next video will be some word problems that will be using quadratics. Thank you.